My name is Kris Krohn. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Just kidding. Today we're doing advanced real estate, and I don't need a sword for this conversation, but we are going to be talking about appraisal value, which means we're going to be breaking down this type of valuation on a home. We're going to break it and compare it down to this type and that time, and ultimately figure out what's crap, what heads we need to cut off, and ultimately how to know how valuable appraisal value is. All right, my friends, we are back with advanced real estate vocabulary. Listen, I know a lot of you out there are starting to get quite sophisticated and you're saying, Kris, help me out. They're starting to throw even bigger words at me. And so one of the words that has come back is appraised value. What is the appraisal value of a home? First of all, you need to understand that there are many different ways to determine the value of a home. And ultimately, none of them are true. The only way to know what a home is actually worth is what someone is willing to what? What someone is willing to pay. So in understanding this appraisal value, what I want to do is I want to break it down for you a little bit and just talk about some of the different kinds of value. So when I'm looking at buying a home, I'm really trying to ascertain, is this a good deal? Does it make sense for my financial situation? Is it a good buy? And so when I look at the home, I'm looking at a number of different levers. I'm going to ask myself, what are the tax benefits of it? I'm also going to ask myself, what's the cash flow? Because real estate is an investment that is income producing, super awesome. I'm going to look at the leverage component. I don't have to buy it paid off. I just have to pay for a part of it. So what my ROI look like with time. I'm also going to look at the equity in the home. And it's this final one that gets us saying, well, how do you really know how much equity there might be? I mean, it's only worth what someone's willing to pay. And Kris, you're trying to buy it because you're an investor. So is it worth what you pay for it? No, because you think you're getting it under value. Well, by how much? Let's make some sense of this chop suey. Okay, first of all, when I'm trying to get a value of the home, I'm going to do a CMA. This is a comparable market analysis. You've seen other videos where we break down how this happens. I get with a realtor that I trust, and I say, take the home that I'm looking at buying, that's the subject property, compare it to other homes in the neighborhood that are closest to it and most like it in size and age and style. And let's see, based on what they sold, how much this might sell for. My CMA might come back and say, okay, Kris, even though this home, you can purchase it for, let's call it $200,000, the CMA came back on it for $250,000. So I'm thinking, have I found some equity? Maybe I did. The CMA says maybe it's worth $250,000. I'm getting it for $200,000. That's $50,000. That's a 20% discount. Are you excited? I don't know whether to be excited yet, because let me ask you, is the comparable market analysis, a report generated by a realtor for the area, an accurate representation of the value? It's not. It's just a guess. It's a what? It's a guess. So you could be doing a comparable market analysis. But then you're wondering, well, that may or may not be the most accurate reflection, so I should get an appraisal. Another person says, whoa, there's a different way of figuring out what this house is worth. You know what we should do? We should use Zillow, right? Like I could go to Zillow and Zillow could tell me that this house is worth $300,000. It could also say that the house is worth $150,000. Let me ask you, how accurate is Zillow? I'm going to tell you right now, you should never make a buying decision in real estate based on Zillow. That would be a really, really monster mistake, because they're not an appraisal company. They're not trying to give you a value. What they're doing is they're using a lot of information with their basic artificial intelligence and saying, well, based on all of this stuff, your home's worth this. There's a lot of things they're just not taking into account. Zillow is often wrong. So can we really trust Zillow? Okay, that would be the least trustworthy. Someone says, you know what, Kris, we should go to the county records. And the county records will basically give us the previous year's tax valuation. And the tax evaluation is going to come in at $170,000. Oh, the house is worth $170,000. That's also not true. Your county, your local government knows that the people will gather in a mob with pitchforks and they'll march on City Hall and say, you're valuating your houses too high. Now, why are people upset about their houses being valuated too high? Because then it increases your what? Your taxes. And so the local governments generally will err on the side of giving you a more, if you're buying it for $200,000, It might come in at 170, and that doesn't mean it's worth 170. That just means that that's as high as the local government's willing to push it without trying to upset you, because they know that there's a lot of pessimists that are going to argue that number lower. So Zillow's not going to be useful. Tax is not going to be useful. Then we get to appraisal value. Let's say that based on my CMA, I actually decide to buy this house. I get it under contract for $200,000. And as a result, I get an appraisal. This is pro. This is not a realtor. This is a licensed individual that pays a lot of money and undergoes lots of scrutiny to ensure that they assign appropriate value to a home. I want to ask you a question. Even though there's houses that show this could be worth $250,000, if I'm buying it for $200,000, where's the appraisal going to come in at? I'll tell you right now. The appraisal is going to come in at $200,000. But Kris, why? Because no appraiser will put their butt on the line over a few $100s to give you an appraisal for anything other than what you're buying it for. The appraiser will absolutely appraise it for less if it is worth less. Like if it's actually worth $30,000 less, then the appraisal will not come in at the purchase price. An appraiser these days, because they got hammered in 2008, an appraiser these days just basically says, hey, you're buying this house based on the comps in the area, the comparable market analysis, is it reasonable? And the appraised value will not tell you what a home is worth. In fact, it will be very inaccurate, just like these two will be inaccurate in different ways. Of the four of these, do you know what the most accurate valuation of your home is? Number one, what a person's willing to pay for it. But if you're not willing to sell and you just got to kind of know how much equity might be there or how good of a deal, then of these four, guess which one is best? It's your comparable market analysis. The appraisal will not tell you what your home is worth. If, by the way, the appraiser said, oh yeah, if you were buying this home for $250,000 and there are homes that are selling for $250,000 just like it, guess what the appraisal would come in at? $250,000. In other words, the appraisal will come in at the purchase price as long as the purchase price is supported by things that have sold. If things that have sold are much greater, will it appraise for more? It won't. The old system would have allowed that to a certain extent. There's just too much regulation, and the appraiser's job is just to make sure that the banks know, hey, we don't care if the person buying it is getting a good deal on it. All we want to know is to certify that they're not paying more than they should be. Because if they're paying more than we should be, then we're lending on money more than it should be, and that puts us, bank, at risk. So friends, appraisal value, I hope that's helpful for you. That's our advanced real estate vocab for the day. Now I want you to remember something. Zillow, right? I mean, it's not a good valuation method. Tax records, again, it's a horrible tax, it's a horrible valuation method. And which one is the most trustworthy? Come on. Yes, you were watching, you were listening. It's CMAs, right? I shouldn't play around with these things. I have a history of cutting myself up. Like I got holes in my shirt, I don't even know why. I got scars everywhere. I don't know why I collect knives. I really shouldn't touch them. But friends, that's the whole scoop here on the appraisal value. And listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, sometimes we believe that's the real value of a home instead of what someone's willing to pay or instead of a CMA. But at least now we've broken it down for you. You're like 10 times smarter right now.